Welcome back, first grade friends. Thank you for joining me today for Unit 2, Module A, Lesson 4. We have become real familiar with our story, A Fine, Fine School. So today we will read just a few pages and look for information in the text and illustrations that helps us to be successful readers. Learners understand that citizenship begins with becoming a contributing member of a classroom community. We explored the characters and settings in A Fine, Fine School. Today, we are going to look at how the events in the story help us describe the characters in A Fine, Fine School. We need to look how the characters interact with the settings and how they react to the events to determine if the characters are good citizens in the classroom. Our learning intention and success criteria for today says, in this lesson, we are learning how readers can use key details about the characters in a story to determine the central message of the story. We will know we are successful when we can describe the characters in a story, explain how the characters react to events in the story, use the interaction of the characters to determine what the story is mostly about, and draw conclusions about the central message and write the central message or lesson the author is trying to teach in the story. We will be reading pages 18 through 21 of A Fine, Fine School, written by Sharon Creech and illustrated by Harry Bliss. And so, on the first day of summer, Tilly set off for school. "But it's summer! What about summer?" her brother called. And that day, Tilly went to see Mr. Keene. She stood in his office in front of his desk. "What a fine, fine school this is," Mr. Keene said. "What amazing things everyone is learning." "Yes," Tilly said, "we certainly are learning some amazing things." "A fine, fine school," Mr. Keene said. "But," Tilly said, "not everyone is learning." "I noticed a new vocabulary word. Did you find the highlighted vocabulary word in the text, boys and girls?" In the sentence, "She stood in his office in front of his desk," the word office means a room or a part of a building where people work while sitting at a desk. So Tilly is in Mr. Keene's office or room where he works when she is talking to him. "What?" Mr. Keene said. He looked very worried. Who isn't learning? Tell me, and I will see that they learn." "My dog Beans hasn't learned how to sit," Tilly said, "and he hasn't learned how to jump over the creek." "Oh," Mr. Keene said. "And my little brother hasn't learned how to swing or skip." "Oh," Mr. Keene said. "And she said. "But you go to school," Mr. Keene said, "to our fine, fine school." "True," Tilly said, "but I haven't learned how to climb very high in my tree, and I haven't learned how to sit in my tree for a whole hour." "Oh," Mr. Keene said. Boys and girls, did you notice another vocabulary word in the text? Did you see the highlighted word? In the sentence, he looked very worried. The word worried means concern or fear about something that might happen. Mr. Keene was really worried or concerned that someone wasn't learning, and he really didn't want that to happen, did he, boys and girls? Now let's check our understanding of our lesson today with some reading comprehension questions. This would be a great place to pause the video while you get your pencil and paper ready to write your answers down so that you can share them later with your teacher. Remember, boys and girls, you can always pause the video after each question to write down your answers. Our first question says, think about what it means to be a good classroom citizen. Remember, boys and girls, in our social studies lesson, we learned that a good classroom citizen does things for others, and they take care of their materials and do their best work. They're also respectful of others and are responsible and try to be good leaders. So let's think about that when we answer the question, why does Tilly go to Mr. Keene's office? Why do you think Tilly was going to see Mr. Keene? This would be a good place to pause the video to write down your answer. Our next question says, why does Tilly tell Mr. Keene that not everyone is learning? In our next question, it says, how does Mr. Keene react to Tilly's concerns? Remember, boys and girls, I can always use the illustrations, or I can go back and reread the text to find my answers. So when Tilly is telling Mr. Keene that not everyone is learning and she's explaining it to him, how does Mr. Keene react? What does he say? Our last question says, why do you think Mr. Keene says, "oh," again and again? We have now come to the part of our lesson where we're going to do our writing activity for your journal today. Remember, boys and girls, this is an optional activity, but if you would like to join me, this would be a great place to pause the video while you get your pencil and journals ready. Our journal writing prompt today says, in our story today, Tilly is being a good classroom citizen. She is speaking up and sharing her ideas. Pretend that you go to school with Tilly and Mr. Keene has decided you will have more school. Write an opinion statement in your journal that you would share with Mr. Keene about his decision to have more school. Do you think this would be a good idea? Why or why not? Be sure to include your reason for your opinion. Remember, boys and girls, when we write our opinions, we're writing about how we think and how we feel. Do you think it would be a good idea to have more school? Why or why not? Remember, when you write your opinion, a good way to start your opinion would be, I think, and then write how you feel. And then to share your reason, you can also add the word because. Don't forget, all sentences start with a capital letter and end with proper punctuation. How do you think you did with our learning intention and success criteria? Let's read the learning intention and success criteria again to find out. In this lesson, we are learning how readers can use key details about the characters in a story to determine the central message of the story. We will know we are successful when we can describe the characters in a story, explain how the characters react to the events in the story, use the interaction of the characters to determine what the story is mostly about, and draw conclusions about the central message and write the central message or lesson the author is trying to teach in the story. I know today we focused on our characters, Mr. Keene and Tilly. We also looked closely at how Tilly was sharing her concerns with Mr. Keene about not everyone getting a chance to learn. She was being a good class citizen and trying to find solutions that would make everyone happy. Do you think the author is trying to tell us we have to have time for play as well as school? I think you did a great job today. You are such good readers. I can't wait to share reading time again with you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon, first grade boys and girls. See you tomorrow.